Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I'm Doug Cannon.
On this week's episode, we give you the latest on the Evander Kane drama. We break down the new look AHL, and we look at some more potential landing spots for Connor McDavid.
And we will also take an in-depth look at the standings and compare them to our start of the season predictions. And man, was Luke way off on his.
No, that's just patently false. All that, plus Doug gets excited about the Maple Leafs one-game winning streak. Let's drop the puck on episode 54. And we are back. Luke Lipinski here alongside Doug Cannon.
That's me over
54. Hi, Doug. How you doing over there?
Good, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. Do you remember how to do this?
Kind of, sort of. What people don't know is that the sun's not up while we're recording this.
That's true. We are recording this
very early.
This is a very clandestine recording. It's been a while.
It's been too long, actually.
I'm not sure the Buffalo Sabres or the Toronto Maple Leafs have actually won since episode 53, though, so maybe it hasn't been that long, right?
Ouch.
They actually both won last night, but that might be the first time Buffalo's won since our previous recording. Episode 54, of course, it is time before we get into the meat of the show. We got a lot to talk about. I figure we just go hour by hour since our last show and break down the league. Podcast should be no longer than about 6 weeks long.
Yeah, and we'll just look at our predictions and look at the standings and figure out how really good we aren't.
We're going to have to break into your house one of these years and steal your predictions. Just take
you gave them to me. I just wrote them down.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not even sure you write those down accurately.
Oh, yes, I do.
We'll have to take a closer look at that. So we'll go through both conferences and just kind of get caught up on everything. And then News and Notes, of course, is award-winning.
Yes.
And it's going to be extra award-winning this week. But first, very quickly.
There it comes.
The number game, which really isn't award-winning this week. Number 54.
Yeah, that's kind of...
This is not much. This is what I gathered. If you are in the NHL and you're wearing number 54, I would skate harder because it's not a number they're giving to the All-Stars, apparently.
No.
I went with David Jones.
I had him on my list. I also had, believe it or not, David Jones is a defenseman.
Okay.
No, not David Jones, sorry. I went with Paul Ranger.
Oh, well, yeah, because he is a defenseman.
Well, David Jones is a winger for the Calgary Flames currently.
Let me make my case for David Jones. It should take about 3 seconds. You ready?
Okay.
He once scored 27 goals in the season.
And he's still playing.
He is still playing. This year he has 8 goals. So, again, the competition for number 54 is not quite as high as it is for, say, number 8.
I went way out on a limb.
All right.
And dug deep.
All right.
In the 54 pile.
But there's just not a lot to dig
and
through.
And I pulled out Daniel Briere.
Daniel Briere? When did he wear number 54?
97-98 for the Phoenix Coyotes.
Well, then obviously, yes, he would win. Daniel Briere's had a pretty good career.
But he only wore it for one season.
It sounds like he wore it for like one game. I feel like you've cheated.
And then what number did he go to the following season?
55.
What's number is he? I always remember him for the second number he chose.
I don't know.
8.
No, but that's what I said before. 8 is like the most competitive number you could have thrown out there.
Well, then he went to now he currently wears 48.
How do you know all this? Are you writing a book on Daniel Briere?
Yes.
Ghostwriting?
Okay, and there's one more.
Nope.
There's one more.
I expected this game to take 1 second.
Another defenseman. Still playing. Doesn't have very good stats, but he's Boston Bruins.
You got me, and I'm not even embarrassed by that. Is it Adam McQuaid?
Correct.
You didn't get me. All right, now that we've alienated all the listeners and driven them far, far away from there.
And all the Paul Ranger, Dave Jones, Adam Quaid fans.
No, we need them to stay because we at least talked about their guys. If you're a Paul Ranger fan, you have to listen to the rest of the show now. Let's go to the Eastern Conference, Doug.
Okay.
And let's try and catch up on some of the things.
Let's look at the standings.
All right.
What do we got?
Well, let's begin in the Metro.
Okay,
and
start there.
I'm going to.
Gee, I wonder why. Well, Pittsburgh's on top.
I don't like your attitude. It's way too early for that. Well, I wanted to talk about the Islanders because this is now 2 years in a row, Doug, on this podcast where I have mentioned that a team will be one of the most entertaining teams in hockey, and they have shot not all the way from the bottom of the standings into playoff contention, all the way to the top. Last year, Colorado. And Colorado was coming off having the first pick in the draft. The Islanders had the 5th pick in the draft last year. They're 1 point behind Pittsburgh for first as we record this. And they're doing it now without Kyle Episoe.
And that was going to be my point. My point right now with the Islanders is they've battled injuries. They've battled adversity. And they're still winning. And to me, it comes from leadership. I think Tavares is like the man.
Well, yeah.
It not only just based on skill, but I mean, here's a guy that was drafted back by when the New York Islanders. When if you said that team's name, people giggled.
Yeah, and he
didn't pull a Lindros.
Exactly. I was trying to figure out a nice way to say it,
but he didn't.
No,
he stayed with his team, and the best part. I had this conversation with somebody the other night. The best part about it is he's put up numbers every season with this team without any talent around him.
Yeah, and I do think that they've gathered some talent, but
now they have, yeah.
Last year he got hurt at the Olympics, and they were just gone. The year before, they did make the playoffs, and they pushed Pittsburgh, actually, in the first round. So you look at John Tavares, he's at 50 points right now this season. Ryan Strome, to me, is very interesting. He was a rookie he's not a rookie now, but leading into last year that we had heard a lot about, and then he kind of showed some of that promise last year. This year, he's in a bit of a slump right now, but still 34 points on the season. You'll take that. I mean, there are teams. New Jersey doesn't even have a guy with 30 points yet.
Right.
And the Islanders have 4 as we record this. Kyle Oposo's 44 points and he's hurt. But I think the story.
I don't think Oposo's coming back, is he?
Not for, I think it's 6 to 8 weeks, so now 5 to 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I think the story, he could be back for the playoffs, has been Yaroslav Halak, although he's even kind of trailed off a little bit lately. He's still getting wins, but the Islanders are in a bit of a stretch where they've been giving up about 3, 4, 5 goals a night.
Yeah, and and unfortunately, this is not the time of year to be doing that.
No, it is not. So that's kind of the Metro. Tell me if you agree with this, and I know this theory has been floated out there by people that aren't just me. I feel like the top 8 teams in the East are the top 8 currently are the ones that are going to the playoffs. I feel like that's been set almost for 2 or 3 weeks now, and it's not set in the order by any means. I mean, you look at the Metro, Pittsburgh's up by 1 on the Islanders, who are up by 1 on Washington, who are up by 2 on the Rangers. The order's not set.
I mean,
but those are your 4 teams.
Well, it's a tight race. I mean, Detroit's only 3 points ahead of Pittsburgh point-wise.
Yeah.
So what's happening over in the East? Are we getting a little bit more competitive, and we're starting to look like the West, where the top teams in the conference are separated by mere points?
I think at the top of the
because over here in the West, we're used to it.
Yeah, I mean, in the West, it's normally everybody. I feel like the top of the East has gotten to that point. I think any of those, the top 8 teams, Pittsburgh, Islanders, Washington, Rangers, Detroit, Tampa, Montreal, Boston, in whatever order you want to put them in, would you be shocked if any of them went to the Stanley Cup? I mean, none of those 8 teams would shock me. I think the one that, I guess, maybe the Islanders. But I wouldn't be shocked.
I'd be more shocked if Washington made the Stanley Cup.
See, I like Washington this year. I think Washington is
well, I'm basing it on past seasons that I've always had Washington high.
And then they
always don't make it. And I've liked the Islanders, so that doesn't surprise me.
The Capitals are interesting to me just because...
The other surprise in the East for me is Tampa.
Well, Tampa, I know that you say that, and then you look at their lineup, and they're just loaded. It's amazing to me how they already had Steven Stamkos, and then were able to draft all these guys.
But I'm like every other fan out there with all the turmoil that was going on down in Tampa with getting rid of St. Louis and all the negative press and stuff. You're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Losing Stamkos, and what's going on? Is Tampa ever going to get it together again? Or, well, yeah, they are getting it together because they got 71 points.
And it's not just the 71 points. I mean, they're one of the most entertaining teams to watch. They score a ton of goals. And it's not just Stamkos. I think that they're kind of tucked down there in Florida, so people are like, oh, okay, Stamkos have another great year. He's not even the leading point producer on the team. Tyler Johnson has 51, and if you remember him, it's because he was a distant runner-up to Nathan McKinnon for Rookie of the Year last year with his teammate, Andre Palat, who also is having a good year. And then they've got Nikita Kucherov, who's also in his second year and is amazing. I mean, they just have all this young talent. We haven't mentioned Jonathan Drouin.
Or Ben Bishop.
Well, yeah. And I think
that's
Ben Bishop,
key there. You know me. Start with your goalies.
Well, when you're talking about a team that, like Tampa, that has all that offense, and you want to realistically see how far they could go in the playoffs, I think you have to mention a guy like Ben Bishop, and he was excellent last year. We saw what happened, unfortunately for them. He got hurt right before the playoffs.
Right.
So, I think any of those top 8 teams could legitimately make the Stanley Cup. I think in years past you knew it was one of about 3, maybe 4 teams from the East that was coming out. And I also think those top 8 teams are the top 8 that make it. The only one that's really close, I guess, to maybe sneaking in is Florida, and they're 7 points behind Boston. And I'm sorry, you're not running down the Bruins for a final playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, Florida might make a push, but I don't see them.
They're a good story. They're having a nice year.
They're having a very good year.
It would be different if they were trying to catch.
I think
Ottawa.
they're in the first year of finally seeing some young talent produce.
Yeah, it's cool, and that's nice.
And what do they have now?
They have Roberto Luongo.
They have goaltending,
Which is another point we made in the preview episodes before the start of the season. Because they have Luongo, they're at least going to be in most games,
right?
Which is great for that young talent to be used to playing meaningful minutes at the end of games.
Yeah, I mean, you take a team like that that's used to losing, and then you go up against a Detroit, and you still lose, but you only lose by one. You don't lose.
And you're in it.
You're in the game, and you only lose by one, not a 5-0. Confidence will build little by little, so then they can start believing in themselves. And then you got Luongo saying, "Okay, I'll get this one for you."
Yeah, he'll just steal some for you anyway. Yeah. And people always talk about how, well, you're going to get experience for your young guys anyway, so just by them playing, they're going to get better. That's true to a certain extent, but look at Edmonton. If the experience is losing by 2 or 3 goals every night, I mean, I'm not even trying to be mean. I will be mean to Edmonton later in the show, but just being in there and losing by 2 or 3 every night, that only helps you so much. You're not playing meaningful minutes with the game on the line.
I still haven't figured out the Edmonton, but that's for the next segment.
Well, here, I'll direct that energy towards Toronto. What's going on there?
From a fan standpoint, their losing skid, as far as I'm concerned, happened when they fired their coach.
Yeah, you were mentioning that yesterday.
Like their stat was like 1-11-1 since firing Carlisle. Now, before that, they were in the top 10. And, yeah, they were struggling a little bit, but I didn't see where, oh, my goodness, the wheels are falling off the bus. We got to get a new driver.
Yeah, usually when you fire a coach mid-season, you at least get a little bit of a jolt, even if it was the wrong move.
They got nothing.
They got the opposite because, and I know Toronto fans already know this, so I'm just kind of rehashing it for the rest of us to laugh at Toronto fans.
Great.
Anaheim, when they beat Anaheim on December 16th, first of all, that's not easy. You beat Anaheim, and this was the stretch Toronto had in the middle of December. Beat Detroit, beat LA, beat Anaheim.
That's a good run.
At that point, they're 19-9-3. And since then, they are 4-18-1. So you've won 4 of 23 games since then.
Ouch.
And that wasn't even when they fired Carlisle. I mean, that was
but on the front end of that, I just said 1-11-1, so there's 13.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's amazing to me how quickly that team melted down. And when you look at the scores.
Okay, so
just what they're putting up, 0-1, 1-0-1. I mean, it sounds like binary code.
Grassy knoll. Okay, you fire.
Sounds like an old-time hockey player.
You fire your head coach. We base it on wins and losses, but yet, like you said, typically when there's a change like that, there's some kind of a positive reaction. They're not getting that.
No.
So my head goes into the room. Was the room not performing for Carlisle, or were they just in that slump? They're clearly not performing for Horacek. So who has control of that room now?
Well, I would ask you.
And they won the other night, which is great for.
That's one of their 4.
One of their 4.
I'm counting that, and that was over Edmonton. So don't get too excited.
But the bad part about that win is you got 4 guys that scored other than Kessel scored, but you got 4 other guys that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and this goes back to my question for you. Having grown up in Toronto, you would know this better than me. And really, any Canadian city, it feels like we were talking about which teams have fired their coaches this year. 3 out of 4 are Canadian.
Right.
Is it just some sort of hybrid combination of hockey craziness mixed with impatience? Because Toronto, when
that's a good way of putting it.
I mean, there's got to be a term for that.
Well, I mean, you know as well as I do because you've been around them that the Canadian media is just frenzy for the sport of hockey.
And it's the worst in Toronto, right? Maybe Montreal?
Toronto, Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually no Canadian cities really. I mean, they cover it pretty hard. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, they're just bigger metropolitan areas. But it's that country sport.
Well, I understand that, but there's got to be a certain point where you're almost. We saw this with Vancouver a couple years ago. I feel like I don't want to blame the fans because this is their role. I mean, they're supposed to be crazy and enthusiastic. You want that for your team. And I'm not going to blame the media either, but there was some sort of negative energy around the Canucks when they lost the Stanley Cup by one game, and it was so negative that you would have thought they were coming in 29th in the league, and they basically just dismantled their team.
But I just admitted at the opening of this segment that I got caught up in that when it came to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I got caught up in all the media that was coming out of South Florida, when in reality, if I had just taken a deep breath and looked at the roster and what they were working with, I probably would have had a different outlook on the team.
But the difference with Tampa Bay is they can afford to be patient, and they can say, let's look at this Tyler Johnson kid and see if he develops into something. Andre Palat, let's see if he develops. In Toronto, if they're not scoring 4 or 5 games into their career, then they're just Nazem Kadri, and they're just thrown aside, and they're just the weight of the media and the fans and just everything is on them. I don't know how Toronto gets good quickly unless they get Connor McDavid, which maybe they're going to do. I don't know how they ever get back on track with that sort of pressure. You literally have to be perfect basically out of the gate. They were a good-looking team earlier this season, and now you're right. I look at the roster. Phil Kessel's having a good year. James Van Riemsdyk's having a good year. Nobody else on this team would I count on to score goals.
Yeah, I mean, like Kadri just disappeared this year.
Yeah. He's got 14 goals, but I don't remember any of them.
But the funny part with Toronto is win, lose, or draw, that building's full.
That's true, but it's full of angry people.
But is that a problem?
I mean, if you ask somebody in Toronto, yeah, they're going to say it's a huge problem.
Yeah, but if I'm a businessman, it's the bottom line or the ledger that matters to me, and I got a full building whether I win or lose. Sure, I can give you the speech, we want to win the Stanley Cup, but at the end of the day, my shareholders want to see those zeros.
Well, that's true. They're not ever going to have that issue. But
so
they've got a building full of angry people.
But in Florida, we'll go to Tampa real quick. If they perform poorly, that building's empty.
Well, I think
there's a different
motive for a lot of teams.
There's a different motivation, let's say in South Florida, to make sure your team gels and gets to go, so that you've got people in the seats. Toronto, like I said, win, lose, or draw, that building's full.
That's true. It's a different kind of pressure for a team like Tampa, or I think even Florida's probably a better example just because everybody picks on them for their attendance. If they're not winning, there's not people there. If they do win, I mean, people will show up. We've seen that. I mean, look, even Chicago 10 years ago didn't have people showing up to their games. And by didn't have people showing up, I don't mean that it was 100 people short of a sellout. It was half empty every night.
Right.
And that's Chicago. And now you can't get anywhere near the arena on game day.
Right.
Anybody else in the East you want to talk about? I do want to mention, I just have to give credit to the Flyers as they push through this tough time when they don't have Zach Ronaldo on their roster and the 2 assists he brought them this year.
How did I know that was coming?
Taking another headshot towards another player in the league. I don't know how they're making it through.
My other point is 2 teams, Montreal, Boston.
Oh, what a great first round that would be.
Boston's starting to come back. The front half of the season dealt with injuries. Everybody seems to be healthy. They're starting to make a push.
That's another. Every time they struggle at all, Claude Julien's name comes up as maybe we should get rid of him. He's
really?
Won you a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
You're in contention every year for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, be quiet. And then Montreal. Loving Montreal. Loved them a year ago. Loving them even more now.
I think we're really shaping up for some. I know they're still
the playoffs are
months away.
Yeah,
but the playoffs in the East are just going to be
okay.
Great.
So real quick, in the Metro, because that's where you started.
Oh, are we going through these awful predictions?
Yes. Right. Well, let's just do top 3. Okay, so let's do.
Just give me the playoff teams. Give me my 4 and your 4 from the Metro, and we'll see.
Okay, my top 4 were Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Washington.
All right.
Rangers. Columbus.
Oh. It sounded good until you hit Columbus.
That hurt.
In fairness to Columbus, everybody's hurt.
Yes.
They're all hurt.
Yeah, that team's struggling hard because of injuries. You had Pittsburgh, Rangers, Washington, Philly.
Well, at least all of my 4 are in the top 5 right now. But
we both had Carolina right.
Poor Carolina. But again, I will say we both talked the Islanders up. And, next year when we do the predictions, one of us needs to have the guts to actually, when we talk a team up, move them into the top of the standings because it keeps happening.
Okay, so there's the Metro.
All right.
So I guess we got Pittsburgh right.
Well, look, the order could easily, Washington and the Rangers, they're a point back.
Right. Okay, Atlantic. Top 4. Doug. I had Boston, Montreal, Detroit, Tampa.
All right, so you had the top 4.
I got the top 4, just different order. You had Boston, Montreal, Detroit. I wrote down Detroit twice.
Well, I was really confident in Detroit, apparently.
Tampa.
I can tell you
had
Tampa
Tampa.
because I was high on Tampa.
Yeah, you had Tampa.
So, there you go. We both had the top 4. This could change greatly. Again, we're just past the halfway point of the season, but I guess we're in the 50s, so we're more than halfway through the season. But I don't think the teams are going to change. And so if that's true, I had 7 out of 8, right? I guess you did too, but we're not talking about you, are we?
No.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Segment 2, looking at the Western Conference. Doug, much like the sun rises in the East, we started in the so I'm told. The sun isn't really up yet, but we began in the East.
Right.
Now we're moving on to the Western Conference.
Bum.
I want to start in the Central.
Where you people in the East, it's 60 degrees and morning hasn't even broken yet.
60 degrees here,
Yeah,
not in the East.
Not in the East.
It'll be a nice,
and don't feel bad,
comfortable 80 degrees.
all you
there.
fans on the East Coast of North America, because my parents live in Toronto, and every Sunday I pick up the phone and go, "Hey, it's 75 degrees. What's the weather like there?"
I'm sure that helps. I'm sure that really just picks them up while they have to trust.
My mother has a few choice words for me.
Yeah, they have to walk through the snow in their kitchen just to get to the phone so you can mock them. It was a little uncomfortably warm.
They're so far away.
No, it was a good life decision. Although I had to turn my air conditioning on in my car the other day.
Come on,
February.
you just admitted that?
It was 85.
Roll the window down.
Yeah. The air conditioner was closer. I'm a
you hear
man
what
of
I just said?
convenience. Yeah.
I said roll the window down. When was the last time you rolled a window down?
I wasn't going to mention anything. Last time I wound the front of my car up to start it. That's the last time I rolled my window down. All right, Central Division. There's 2 teams in particular I want to talk about here, okay? So I don't know if you want to give us the predictions, but
And if all the fans out there listening, have you noticed it's always what he wants to talk about?
well, yeah, I'm in the talking about seat.
Okay.
You're in the mocking seat.
I'm in the mocking seat.
You can talk about whoever you want, but I want to hit on 2 teams.
Okay.
Nashville. How right was I on Nashville? Because and the reason I'm saying
You
is,
weren't as right as you think you were.
well, they were 100-1 to win the Stanley Cup at the start of the year. Remember
Yeah, I
brought that up?
remember your gambling thing, yes.
That was the whole reason I brought it up, was just for Nashville. And I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. But I guarantee you, whatever the odds are now, they're not 100-1. 74 points on the year as we record this. They went through a 3-week stretch without their best player, Pekka Rinne.
So how does that work? If I go to Vegas and they give me 100-1 odds, does it stay 100-1 odds?
I think it's whatever.
Once I make my bet?
I think it's like a stock. Like whatever you buy it at
Oh,
is
okay.
what you've got it at.
Okay, cool.
So either way, Nashville, 74 points. It's amazing to me how they were able to basically just put together a top line without really giving up much. And we talked about that in the
They haven't
preseason.
given up anything. What's the key here for this team?
Rinne's healthy.
Okay, so
But he missed 3 weeks, and they're still this good.
yeah, but stumbling through 3 weeks
No, I agree.
is different than half a season.
Yeah. And that was the difference last year. And that's why
Absolutely.
That's why I was so shocked that people were like, oh, yeah, they won't be any good. Look at their record last year. Their best player at the most important position was out.
And then the next layer that I would put on top of Rini being healthy is they have a different mindset in the coaching. I'm not taking anything away from Barry Trotz because I think he's a good coach.
I think they're still benefiting from him.
I think that room, that atmosphere just needed to change.
I agree with that, and I will say this. Peter Laviolette's come in, and he's instilled a new system, and they've picked it up quickly.
Right.
I mean, there wasn't really many growing pains, and yet you can tell they still have the defensive characteristics that Barry Trotz infused into that team. And, oh, by the way, they added that top line. And then on top of all of that, if you look at Mike Fisher's numbers, and he missed the first 21 games because he had the Achilles injury, if you just project the numbers he has right now, I believe it's 13 goals, 12 assists. If you project them out over a full 82-game season, it's career highs in goals, career highs in assists, and career highs in total points, and it's not even close. It's like 35 goals, 34 assists, 69 points. That's not what he normally does.
I think also, this is me, I like to deal on that emotional level and the non-qualitative things. It's that atmosphere change. It's that change, the change of coach, change of system. He's probably playing within a system that suits his game.
That's an excellent point. That is probably, I mean, that's the one thing that has really changed for him.
Right.
Because Mike Fisher is not old by NHL standards, but at 34, you don't usually have your best season.
Correct.
You don't usually break out at
Right.
34, and that's it's really kind of what he's done. And they lead what, in my opinion, is the toughest division in hockey this year. And I don't even really think it's close. All 7 teams are in playoff contention.
Right. And so then just on the whole coaching thing, I would like just when we see, because we kind of joked about the 4 coaches that have been dismissed already this season and why these coaches are released. When a team buys into a system like Nashville is, you will have success. And then when the teams let go of coaches, it's like, is the coach not getting success because he's a bad coach, or is the team resisting to buy into his system? If the team buys into his system and they fail, then we can take a look at the coach. If the team doesn't have success and they haven't bought into the system, then I think you need to look at the leadership in the room.
Well, yeah, at that point, then the coach, you can't blame him because what he's trying to do isn't even
being accepted.
It's not even being used. Yeah,
Right.
It's like he's trying to sell you a car, and you're saying, well, this car doesn't run, but you're not putting the keys in the car to actually start it. So, of course, it's not going to run.
Yeah, see, but that's what that's the thing I love about Nashville. I mean, you got your goaltending back, which is key. I don't care what anybody says. You got a really good new coach. Nothing against Trotz. We've said that many times. So now the guys are buying into the new system, which is a little bit more offensive minded. Right?
And they have more offensive guys, too.
And they have
the
more
Philip Forsberg trade 2 years ago is insane.
So now, and everybody's buying in. And because of it, they're first in the Central.
Well, and I think it's different with Nashville, too. I mean, Trotz had been there for 15 years. I think at a certain point.
He was the only coach that team's ever seen.
Yeah, literally. The only coach they'd ever had. So
Right.
At a certain point, okay, maybe we do mix it up a little bit. And again, I mean, it's interesting. If Rene doesn't get hurt last year, they make the playoffs in my mind. And
Yes.
Trotz probably doesn't get fired.
You're probably right.
I mean, how are you going to fire him after he takes you to the playoffs again? So that's Nashville. The one other team in the West that I want to hit on real quick, or in the Central, rather, that I want to hit on, is Minnesota, because they've been struggling all season, and that is the team I specifically remember, and I guess I'm very close to being wrong now, saying at the start of the year, they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to win a playoff series. I remember making that personal guarantee on the show. And you know what, Doug? I still think they're going to make the playoffs.
It's a big climb.
It is a big climb, and they've got to jump a lot of teams. But they've won 5 in a row. They're healthy now.
5 in a row.
Woohoo! They have a goal. Well, it helps when the team in front of you has lost 6 in a row. I mean, they're closing the gap on Winnipeg quickly.
Yeah, but we all know what it's like when you have to count on another team to do something for you.
Well, and they kind of have to count on a couple teams. But let me just throw this out there. Minnesota, a week ago, was in last in that division. Mm-hmm. And they've already jumped Dallas and Colorado. And I do like Dallas, and Colorado's kind of a wild card. That's probably not going to make a wild card spot. But Minnesota's already jumped them, and if you look at the teams in front of them for a playoff spot, they're tied with LA kind of for 9th, and obviously I'm going to give LA the nod because of what they do every year. But the teams in front of them for wild card spots are Vancouver, Calgary, and Winnipeg. I mean, how much confidence do you have in all of those teams holding on to their spots? They don't have much experience this time of year.
I give Winnipeg a lot of credit. I think Winnipeg, worst case scenario, holds on to the 8th spot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think they're going to make it.
I mean, that was not my prediction. I'll honestly say that was not my prediction at the start of the season.
Yeah, me either.
But I watched them play Chicago the other night, and what this team does, Chicago won.
That's the first time Chicago's beat them this year.
But what they do is that Winnipeg adjusts for every team they play. So for a team like Chicago, which is a team consisting of 4 first lines.
Doesn't really seem fair when you put it that way, but it's true.
And 3 first sets of D and two starting goalies.
Half the roster was in the All-Star game.
They adjusted their game. And what they did was they took a book out of LA's page and they got physical with Chicago. And all these skilled guys were getting pounded. And it didn't matter who had the puck. It didn't matter if it was Kane. Didn't matter if it was Taves. And there's kind of those little unwritten rules. Don't go after this. And they just pounded them. And they pounded them. And it slowed Chicago down. And that's how they've been having success against Chicago. But Chicago won the last time they faced each other. But like you said, it's the first time Chicago's beaten Winnipeg.
Yeah, and that game went to overtime. They're 3-0-1 against the Blackhawks this season. And also that game came on the heels of some interesting stuff that we'll get into in the final segment. So Winnipeg had some turmoil leading into that game, I guess you could say. But again,
I like the way they're adjusting.
I do too, and they've certainly exceeded my expectations. Paul Maurice has to be given consideration for Coach of the Year. He's not going to win it. But doing an excellent job. It's real nice to have a 270-pound defenseman back there that can move like Dustin Byfuglien. Oh, no team has that, really. I mean, Boston has Chara, but it's a different kind of big.
Is Calgary going to hold on?
See, this is the thing. I think when you look at Calgary, Vancouver, and Winnipeg, Calgary in particular, they're ahead of schedule. If they drop off, and I just can't see Calgary finishing ahead of LA with a playoff spot on the line. That's more credit to LA than anything else. If they miss the playoffs, big deal. They're way ahead of schedule. I mean, the rebuild is going very well. Johnny Gaudreau might win Rookie of the Year. Sean Monahan's really solid. I mean, they got a good team. Vancouver's tied with them too, so LA might catch them instead. I think with Vancouver it's a little bit different because they have higher expectations. And with Winnipeg, I want to go back to them real quick. They've exceeded my expectations and your expectations.
Oh, wait, yeah.
But what do you think about that fan base that now we're a few years in and this is the closest they've ever been to the playoffs? What if they miss the playoffs again this year after having the lead that they had?
But I have to think that even that fan base was kind of where we were at the start of the season.
Maybe.
I mean, every fan of every team wants their fan to do well and to make the playoffs. But a realistic fan can take a look at a roster and go, okay, well, we might get close, but how realistic is it? Especially looking at the Western Conference and how stacked it is, talent-wise. I don't know.
You're right. The West is, I mean, as we are recording this right now, just in the Central, Minnesota is currently out. Colorado won the division last year. They're currently out. They haven't really had any huge injuries this year.
Right.
And Dallas is in last place.
I think if you think that fan base is going to get upset, I can only see that fan base getting upset if Winnipeg is holding on to the 8th spot and management, coaching, whatever, does some kind of bonehead thing that prevents them from staying there. If they play hard and they lose, working hard and they fall to the 9th spot and miss it by a point, I think most fans will be okay with it.
What if they miss the playoffs because they don't make any trades at the trade deadline, which is now 3 weeks away?
That's what I'm saying. That could be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
could see where
taking
fans
that
are
as
good.
a boneheaded thing. Okay.
Like if somebody's available and they don't make a move for it, I mean, it'd be one thing to make a move for a key player and get turned down, but if you don't make the move,
yeah. If you make the move for whoever up front or on defense with that team, just because everybody's always hurt, and then you miss the playoffs, at least you tried.
Right.
So they're in an odd situation because they've got some good young talent coming up.
Okay,
I don't think Evander Kane's ever playing there again, but they can't trade him, so we'll get into that. But
so Colorado is my big disappointment in the Central.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like Matt Duchene. I like the way he approaches the game off the ice. When's the last time you saw his name in the box score in a highlight?
And of course, it always happens. I don't have his numbers in front of me.
Oh, I do, and they're not.
But
they're not exciting.
What about McKinnon?
McKinnon has slowed down a bit too. Yeah, McKinnon has 9 goals this year.
Okay, so my point there was, and we said it at the start of the season, and we said it at the tail end of last season, the sophomore year.
The sophomore
Duchene,
slump.
we were hoping that Duchene would pick it up because he's past his slump, and he's not.
He seemed immune to the sophomore slump. Like, of all of the rookies that we see perform really well, and it is a weird thing in hockey, which I don't notice this as much in other sports. Maybe it's just because I follow hockey so much closer. I don't notice guys come in and have just a great rookie year and then disappear the next year. And he hasn't completely disappeared, but he's got 29 points. Look, Matt Duchene, came in the year John Tavares came in, and Duchesne was the guy who was stealing all the accolades as a rookie, and then he completely disappeared his second year to the point where he changed his whole offseason thing, his whole offseason regimen, and put all this extra work in and started seeing a nutritionist and doing different workouts. And yet last year he has 70 points in 71 games. This year he has 31.
Wow.
So I don't know what's going on in Colorado.
Yeah, that should be just as entertaining of a team as the Islanders.
Yeah.
With the talent and goaltending and coach.
I know they lost Paul Stastny, but they added Jerome McGinley in the offseason. I mean, it shouldn't be that much of a difference. I think Colorado, A, I don't think they're making the playoffs this year, and B, I think it's more a side effect of just the division they're in. I just don't think they can keep up with all these teams consistently. We're seeing that right now. They're still a good team. I think they'll be back next year.
Right. I don't know. I also think that you have guys like McKinnon and Duchesne, when they come into the league, they're so young. They're still developing.
Oh, yeah. Even Duchesne.
And most hockey players, I feel, don't hit their stride until they're 21, 22 in age.
I'm just looking at Duchesne, who is still only 24, but this is his 6th year in the league, and he started off with 55 points his rookie year. It wasn't his sophomore year. Sophomore year was good, 67 points. It was his 3rd year. He had 28 points, and that's when he made sure he changed everything. And I thought that we were past that, but here we are this year, struggling again. Relatively. I mean, I'd still like to have Matt Duchesne on my team, but he's not giving you the jolt that you were hoping. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly had an amazing year last year. He's got 29 points.
Okay, in St. Louis, Chicago, they're just doing their thing.
Yeah, I think we do need to touch on the fact that St. Louis went 13-0-1. Was it 13-0-1 in a 14-game stretch? This might actually be their year. Although
we've said that for 2 years.
We have, and I don't have time to make the case for them this year over past years, but I think this is their best team that they've had. Let me put it that way.
Well, they have 20 wins at home and 14 wins on the road. That's pretty good.
Well, and I mean, this year you have Vladimir Tarasenko playing like a superstar, which you didn't have in recent years. But I say all that, and then if the season ended today, they'd play Chicago in the first round. That's brutal.
That's a bloodbath there.
Holy
cow.
How big is it to get first in the Central Division? Because if you get second, you're probably playing Chicago. If you get first, you're playing a wild card team, which might be LA. I mean, it might not be any easier.
Yeah, can you imagine St. Louis, Chicago? That's just give me a coin and I'll flip it.
Yeah, that would be, of all the possible playoff matchups we're looking at right now, I think that would be the best.
And for all you Dallas fans, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just it's not happening for them for whatever reason.
It's not clicking, is it?
Sagan has 29 goals, so you're getting what you expected out of him. He has slowed down considerably, but still.
I could use a team with 29 goal scorer.
Well, yeah, but he had 26 like a month ago, it felt like. But I think with Dallas and Colorado, it's just a byproduct of who they're in a division with. So you want to give us what we had in the
okay.
I see the West.
You're Central.
I'm all thrown off in the West.
Your top 4 in the Central. Chicago.
Okay.
St. Louis.
Okay.
Minnesota.
I still think they get there.
Colorado.
Why did they not have Nashville? I think you wrote these down
You had Nashville in
wrong.
5th.
No. But I think I explicitly said or first when you made that.
I had Chicago. Colorado.
Way to go out on a limb with Chicago.
Colorado.
That's
I had Chicago, Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, and I had Nashville in 6.
I don't know what's wrong with you.
Dude, you had them 5th.
Yeah, but I had them in a very close 5th.
And we both had Winnipeg 7th.
Well, that could still happen. I mean, I don't think it will, but it could.
I don't think that's going to happen.
All right. Over to the Pacific. I don't think we need to go through the predictions in the Pacific. Let's just quickly look at the fact that Anaheim, of all the division leaders in hockey, I don't want to say they have it wrapped up, but they do. I mean, they're up 12 points right now.
Yeah, but you know what? Every year we say that about Anaheim and San Jose. And I said it about Anaheim last year and didn't go so well.
Well, it didn't go so well in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to necessarily do anything in the playoffs, but the division, nobody's making up 12 points on Anaheim. Especially not San Jose.
Okay, I was talking to a friend of mine.
You have all these friends. I don't see them.
Back to the Chicago, Winnipeg playing Chicago. This is the thing that scares me about Anaheim. When Anaheim plays Chicago, they try to skate with them.
Yeah. I think
it doesn't go well.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think your comments underline the real point here in the Western Conference. We're talking about all these good teams, but then you start talking about playoffs, and immediately the conversation switches from, wow, they look really good, this could be their year, to, well, how are they getting through Chicago or LA?
Right.
Because that's what you have to go
And everybody's
through.
going, wait a minute, LA's in 5th. Yeah.
They do this
Just
every
wait,
year.
just wait.
I mean, it's not even possible. I'm not going to buy into the LA thing, because every year they're like, look, we were in 5th with 29 games left, and now we're winning the Stanley Cup again. Isn't this amazing? It was amazing the first time. This would be the third time. I'm not
right.
I've seen this movie before.
I think that their coach prepares them for the marathon very well.
They do have some work to do, though, this year.
Yeah, they have a little bit of work, but, I mean, they're that long-distance runner that will be in 3rd, then be in 1st, then drop to 5th, while it gets a little bit of a breath, and then you'll go back to 2nd.
I will say this.
And then as you're coming to the finish line, you look over your shoulder and go, holy crap, there he is.
At what point, if you're Anaheim or any of those teams, do you start, well, we're playing Calgary tonight, maybe we start our AHL goalie and get Calgary a couple more points? Because I think if you don't want to deal with LA in the Western Conference Finals again, you need to make sure they don't make the playoffs.
Right.
Because once they get in, it's going to be trouble.
So, who else we got? We've touched on Vancouver. San Jose is San Jose.
That was good. And yet, it says it all, really.
I don't have a feel for San Jose.
San Jose is L.A. It's been the same story for the last couple of years. They look a little weak in the regular season. They turn it on in the playoffs. San Jose, it's been the exact opposite story for 15 years.
Right.
So you do have a feel for San Jose, and you just don't want to say it. It's just the same team. They're in 2nd in the Pacific.
And then the playoffs roll around, and we say goodbye.
I mean, let's just say, again, this is not to discount what Calgary, Vancouver, and Winnipeg have done. But I think if LA has to run one of them down to make the playoffs, they're going to do it. And so let's just say LA, they're 5 back of Vancouver. Let's say they catch Vancouver and Calgary. It's LA, San Jose in the first round. We know what's going to happen.
Right.
We saw last year San Jose was up 3-0, and LA wasn't even rattled.
Then does San Jose make changes? They say that every year, too.
Because they do just good enough to not make changes. It goes back to your point with Toronto. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs again. They're in the playoffs every year.
And they're going to have seats filled.
They've got a new AHL team that's playing in the same arena.
Ugh. Okay, and then Arizona's going through some changes and development changes, so they won't be making the playoffs this year, nor will Edmonton.
Yeah, the difference between those two teams is Arizona has a plan, it seems like, and they have some positive direction. Edmonton, much like San Jose, it's the same story every year, except, again, San Jose is a playoff team every year. Edmonton,
I don't get it.
I don't either, and I know I've made this point to numerous people in my life, but I'm going to make it to you now on this podcast. They can't get the number 1 pick, right? We've done this before. I feel like giving the Oilers the number 1 pick the year when Connor McDavid's going to be the number 1 pick is like handing somebody the keys to a Lamborghini who can't drive a manual transmission.
Okay, I just tested the 2015 lottery simulator, and the winner is Carolina Hurricanes.
Does it go like through the top 3 picks, or is it just whoever
Top
wins?
3 would be
Carolina, Buffalo, Edmonton?
Correct.
Okay.
And 4 has Arizona.
Okay. We're going to get into the McDavid thing in news and notes because I have a couple teams that he really
and then I'll
should
push the
go
button
to.
again and see if it changes.
I need to favorite that on my phone so I can just do it every 2 seconds until late April.
So, Pacific, top 4.
This is where it went badly for me.
Luke, Anaheim.
Ah, that's right.
So it's not bad.
Okay.
Too hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. L.A.
You have this big smile on your face, so I know I messed up. LA is still a top 4 team, so I'm not worried about that.
San Jose.
Well, okay.
Okay. Arizona.
Well, I don't think Arizona's going to do it. No, I may have let my heart make that pick.
Okay, Doug. Anaheim. San Jose. Oh, look, 1-2.
Yeah, I love how you say the same teams, different tone of voice when you're talking about your predictions. With me, it was like Anaheim. With you, it's like Anaheim.
I had L.A. and then Vancouver.
You might actually get all 4.
I could.
And overall, I mean, I'm looking at 14 out of 16 playoff teams, and you're looking at 14 out of 16 playoff teams. That's not bad.
Because we're good.
Yeah, that's true. It's the opposite of bad. You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Hockey Podcast for even more hockey news.
Hashtag do it.
Final segment, news and notes. Basically, we do the first two segments just as sort of like the undercard to this segment, right?
Ding, 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 ding.
And now for the main event.
This is Mayweather-Pacquiao. That's what this
here
is
we go.
right here. Mayweather-Pacquiao 5 years ago when it actually mattered, not now. So,
I don't like Mayweather.
Really?
No.
I don't think he's ever lost, has he?
I'm not saying he's not a good boxer.
okay.
I just
I thought
the
you
person. I don't like the.
Okay.
I shouldn't even say I don't like the person because I've never met the guy. I've never had dinner with the guy. His persona that he projects is what I don't like.
It's an interesting persona. I will
Yes.
give you that. But I would take him in any fight against anyone at this point.
Yeah, if I was putting money on the fight, yeah, I'd go with Mayweather.
He has a decent track record of perfect. So we've got a lot of news and we've got a lot of notes. Doug, do you want me to just randomly pick something out of the bag like it's like a grab bag?
Reach in and pull one out.
Let's start.
Oh, there was a joke there, but it'd be filthy of me to
I don't want to start news and notes over again.
go.
Let's start World Cup of Hockey.
Okay.
Only because last year, leading up to the Olympics, you and I said, hey, guess what, people? This is the last year NHL players will be in the Olympics because they're going to do a World Cup of Hockey.
Right.
People said, Luke, Doug, you're crazy. Now we have the World Cup of Hockey next year, and I want apologies. I just want a constant string of apologies, not next year, 2016, until September of 2016.
It's the only logical solution, period. It's perfect for the league. It's perfect for the players. And the one twist I like about it
I do too. I'm assuming you're going to say what I
is the
think you're
two
gonna say.
all-star teams.
Yeah.
I think that was just brilliant.
So in case you somehow missed it, and I know this is from a couple weeks ago now, but whatever, we're going to talk about it. It's what? U.S., Canada, Russia, Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic. Well, I watch way too much hockey. I just rattle all 6 of those off. Then a European all-star team from countries that aren't those countries we just rolled out there.
And a North American all-star team.
Yeah, a 23 and under all-star team.
Yep.
Which is going to be interesting when the North American, I think they're calling them the Young Stars, are playing Team Canada. That's going to be awkward. It'll be fun.
I can't wait for 2016 to roll around to get into that and I just think from a business plan standpoint, it's so beneficial to the 30 clubs not have to take that huge break.
Yeah. Yeah.
And lose all momentum in February. When do the winter? It's about February, right?
And look,
About this time of year. Well, this time of year, what are teams doing?
they're gearing up for the playoffs.
Right, and it's like the Olympics roll around. It's like just put that on hold.
We talked about this last year, and you and I, in case people just started listening recently, I mean, if you just started listening recently, this is the first episode you've heard.
Because we haven't done anything recently.
But you and I both love the Winter Olympics.
Yes.
There's still going to be hockey in the Winter Olympics. It's just not, I would assume, not going to be NHL players. This isn't necessarily 100% that there isn't going to be NHL players in the Olympics, but to me, this is the next logical step towards them taking away from that. And it's for the reason you just said. In the middle of the season, we saw it last year with teams, ton of momentum. It's one thing to take 4 days off for the All-Star game. It's another thing to take 17 days off and have your players go play somewhere else in a very competitive atmosphere.
And
this isn't soccer.
injuries looming over your head.
Ask the Islanders about John Tavares.
Right.
Because their season ended last year.
Because of the Olympics.
Maybe they wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway, but all hope ended at that point.
Yeah, so I just the business plan thing is what makes sense in my head. I love the fact that it's at the start of the season. So let's say a guy does get hurt. Let's say you lose him for 4 weeks.
Which is still entirely possible. I mean, it's not...
Yeah, I'm not saying...
Tavares doesn't get hurt and he's out for the year in this.
But let's just say it's a broken bone. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks, September to October, is a lot better than 6 weeks, March to April.
Yeah.
If you time shift it. So I think it's great. It's a great decision. I'm looking forward to it because now I'm spoiled even more in an Olympic season because I'm going to have the World Cup, I'm going to have the NHL, and I'm going to have the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. We've got the World Cup in 2016. The Olympics will be 2018. There will still be hockey in the Winter Olympics. That's the biggest thing. You're not losing really anything from the Winter Olympics, but now you're gaining another hockey
And the
tournament.
NHLPA, I haven't really read anything coming out of the NHLPA. They have to support this.
Yeah, I would think so.
I think it's better for the players.
I think it is.
I really do.
Yeah. And it's still it's not like some little exhibition tournament they're not going to take seriously. They're still going to take this seriously.
You're still playing for your country.
I get that it's not a Olympic gold medal, but it's the next best thing, really. See, you could make the case, well, what about the World Championships? Well, all the best NHL players are in the playoffs during the World Championships, and they're not missing that. And the World Championships, I like them, but it's weird. You will start off without Alex Ovechkin because the Capitals will make the playoffs, but then when they lose in the first round, then all of a sudden he's on your team and somebody else isn't.
Right.
That's not the case here. You've got your team, and I really like the twist with the European All-Star team because that team is either going to be way behind everybody else because they haven't played together, or they're going to be light years ahead because they're an all-star team from an entire continent.
Right.
So it's going to be fun.
Okay, what's next in your little grab bag?
Well, I feel like we have to hit on the Evander Kane situation in Winnipeg.
What a mess.
And yeah, I think everybody kind of knew it was going to get to this point. This is like. It's like a celebrity wedding that you know isn't going to last, and you're just kind of waiting for it to eventually melt down and just...
It's like an episode of The Kardashians.
Amazing fashion. There you go. And, well, here we go. Does Evander Kane ever play another game for the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, if I'm the Winnipeg Jets, no.
Okay. If I'm Evander Kane, no.
No. I think that at the start of the season, do we sign him? Do we this? Do we that? I mean, there's been so many indecisions around this player that if I'm him, I don't want to play there either.
The whole situation has just been handled so terribly, and
but I have a twist to that. I have a huge but.
Well, is that a Kardashian joke?
Very good.
Okay.
Here's my thing.
Okay. Should I lay out the story before, in case people missed it before you give your thing?
Give the backstory.
Okay. The real quick backstory, I think the whole situation's been handled horribly ever since that team moved to Winnipeg. So in a lot of the case here, I'm on Evander Kane's side, really all the way up until this past week. Almost 100%.
That's where my butt comes.
Okay.
Is that part of it.
That part. But this week, Evander Kane shows up to a morning skate, not in the traditional suit, whatever. He shows up in a track suit.
So therefore they were on the road.
So... Yeah, Vancouver, I believe. And
what people need to understand is that when you're on the road, the attire is shirt and tie or jacket and shirt to the rink, to the game. At home, the guys are a little bit more casual when they go to morning skate.
That's true. It's a good point. That's good to put out there. But, I mean, everybody always abides by this. Like, if you see a team practice on the road, they're showing up in a suit.
It's a long-standing tradition in hockey.
Everybody in the press box, for the most, everybody that's associated with a team in the press box, broadcasters, whatever, they all wear suits.
Yep.
So, anyway, Kane shows up in a tracksuit, and that by itself isn't going to be a big deal, but it's the next chapter in this ongoing saga between him and the Jets. It sounds like it's Dustin Byfuglien who takes the tracksuit, tosses it in the shower, so he's got a nice cold, wet tracksuit to drive home in. Kane kind of disappears that afternoon, healthy scratch for the game that night. Next day, I believe it was the next day, he's like, you know what, I'm in pain. I've been in pain all year. Now I'm getting surgery. I'm out 6 months.
So that was his out. Not to play for the team.
And not only that, to kill any trade value he had. Because the way this has gone, I don't think he ever plays for the Jets again. And now they can't even trade him really at the trade deadline to get anything for this year. I mean, this goes back to your point from last segment. They need to add a piece for this year. They just lost a guy who once scored 30 goals.
Well, he can't play for this team anymore because there's too much a rift that's developed between the front office and the player. But I used Eric Lindros at the start of the show, and I'm a firm believer, Tavares is my shining star here, is that he was picked by the Islanders, he stayed with the Islanders, he's still there, they're seeing success. Evander is a Winnipeg Jet, he signed a contract with the Winnipeg Jets, he should honor that contract. And if he is unhappy, then he needs to go behind closed doors with management and work out a deal, because I'm sure there's some kind of option in his contract that where him and the GM and the ownership can say, okay, look, you're unhappy, we're unhappy, let's do what's best for the team, let's do what's best for the player, and we'll find another team for you to go to. We'll even go as far as saying, give us your top 5 picks, and we'll try to get you to the teams that you want to go to. We can't guarantee it, but we'll give it
We'll start there.
We'll give it our best effort. None of this stuff needs to be in the public. None of this needs to be discussed by the public. And here we are discussing it. As for the incident in the locker room, I'm going to have to side with Don Cherry. Be a big boy. You're unhappy. We get it. Showing up in a tracksuit, walking in the room when all your teammates are wearing proper attire.
You know what's going to happen.
You know what's going to happen. Don't be a baby. Don't pout. And if your tracksuit got wet, be a big boy, pick it up, go down the hall to the equipment manager and say, can you throw this in the dryer for me? Because they have dryers
Which
there.
I'm sure is what happened. Or they gave him, whatever to wear. It's
They have a clothes that he can wear. But please, don't pout. You've been playing hockey for a very long time. You know what happens in the room because you kind of dissed your teammates as well as the team. You have to take that into consideration when you make these decisions. This is, okay, it's about you or you're making it about you. But when you cross that line and make it about your teammates, you're going to get some blowback.
Yeah, and I think that's, and again, I'm pro Evander Kane. I mean, I stand up for this guy pretty much, I wouldn't say in everything, but I think the situation with him has been handled very poorly by a number of different, I don't want to say just media, but the media and the team and everybody in Winnipeg, fans as well. He's come under a lot of scrutiny that I don't necessarily think he would have come under had he been playing for, say, L.A. or something. So, whatever. But you look at the career he's had so far, real nice 2 years in Atlanta. I don't know of any problems there. And then his first year in Winnipeg, 30 goals, 27 assists, 57 points. But I will say this, and I don't know if this is just retroactive because of the news this week, but we are hearing, not just with the Jets, but even in junior growing up, some didn't necessarily get along with all his teammates. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't really care if my player gets along with all his teammates as long as he shows up and is a good player, and Evander Kane is a good player, and now you would assume his shoulder's going to be completely healed for whatever team he plays for next year. But where I think that it became irreparable with Winnipeg, and you kind of touched on this, is now it sounds like there's not just a rift between him and management, it sounds like there's a rift between him and his teammates. And that's it. You can't repair that.
As a coach, now you're affecting my room, and I don't want it in my room. Because it's hard enough at that level to win hockey games. Winnipeg's not the most talented team in the NHL. They're in a playoff run.
They need him.
Well, they need him because of his abilities, but they don't need him because of what he's doing to the room. They'll probably have more success with him not in the room and other guys having to step up and work a little bit harder than him being in the room and disrupting 19 other guys.
So which of these would be the worst? Because now you have a rift between Kane and his teammates. Rift between a player and a fan and the fans, the fan base of a city, or between a player and management, or between a player and the media. I think the worst is with your teammates.
It's with your teammates. I mean, fans, I don't have to listen to the radio. I don't have to watch TV. I don't have to go on the internet. I don't have to read the newspapers. They can say whatever they want.
But you would agree, though, I mean, if you're in a city where you love your fan base, it makes you have that extra motivation. I mean, it's got to be weird to go out there and be like, yeah, I want to win, but not for these people. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's the case with Kane, but I'm just saying I think, in my opinion, that would be the second worst. Teammates is the worst. If you're upset with management, whatever, you can just kind of, or media, whatever, then it's us against the world.
Right.
But when you want to have a good relationship with your teammates and your fans, and I don't feel like he has that now.
Well, without, researching his whole history, he hasn't played a full season in his career.
He's struggled with the injuries. He played the full lockout season, but even that, that's only 48 games. So
and if he's got history, somebody needs to be a big boy.
Yeah.
Okay, you're 23 years old now. You're not 19. You're not 18. You're not 20. You're 23. It's time to be a man and be a big boy and make the right decisions. And if he's smart, gets his agent on the phone, and he sets up a meeting, and he does exactly what I said. They go behind closed doors and do it right.
Yeah, because you look where he was taken, and I know it wasn't Winnipeg at the time. Atlanta took him number 4 in 2009. The other guys right around him in that draft are Tavares and Duchesne. Oliver Ekman-Larsson went 2 picks after him. Nazem Kadri went after OEL. There's some decent players in that draft. So when you pick number 4 in a draft, you're investing a lot in that guy.
And to be as smug as to walk in a tracksuit on the road, you really, really should have some numbers or something to back that up.
I just the part of that I can't defend is in a vacuum. Who cares? He showed up in a tracksuit, right?
Correct.
Except in the world of hockey, you know it's going to cause an issue. So you walked into practice knowing you were going to cause an issue.
I think that if it was any sport, not just hockey, but if in any team sport, when you walk into a locker room and you break one of the rules of the room and you disrespect teammates, there's going to be a problem.
Especially for him, because I thought it was insane when people just picked on him for pictures he posted of himself doing push-ups with money on his back on Instagram. That's his Instagram account. Get lost. He's not doing anything bad.
Right.
But if you're him and you know that you're getting scrutinized for everything, then you know you're going to this is going to cause issues. All right, so that's Winnipeg's problem for now. What else do we have to hit here real quick?
AHL.
The AHL, let's see, where are the teams moving to? San Diego.
Bakersfield.
San Jose.
San Jose. There's 5.
Ontario, which I'm going to ask you this, Doug.
Canada?
Ontario outside of LA. That's the LA Kings affiliate. Will that be the best hockey team in Ontario?
Wow.
Waiting all show to ask you that.
Wow.
Because the LA Kings have a pretty good AHL team.
Yes, they do.
And, I mean, who is their competition at that point? So, I like this move in general. And I always –
Well, we've said it before in the show that if you look at the AHL geographically, there's nobody west of the Mississippi.
San Antonio was the only team.
Yeah. So this is good. I think this is really good because I think in the macro of it, it helps the sport of hockey. Because now you're exposing more people to the game that we love.
You are, and just from the business side, I mean, you're moving the Oilers team to Bakersfield, Calgary's team to Stockton, which Stockton isn't that close to Calgary, but still it's closer than it was. Anaheim will be in San Diego, the Kings will be in Ontario, San Jose will be in the same building.
Right.
So just from travel purposes, and if you're calling a guy up, you know, San Jose calls a guy up and they have a home game that night, they don't have to worry about him coming from halfway across the continent.
I don't know the schedule set up in the AHL off the top of my head, but I mean, don't forget, you're still going to have to fly to Portland. You're still going to have to fly to, you know, some East Coast teams. There's going to be some long trips
For your actual games.
Right.
Just during the AHL season. Yeah. Right. And to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's why we're seeing 5 teams move at once and not 1. Because if one team moved to Bakersfield, California,
it's ridiculous.
Every game is a ton of travel.
So at least half their season is in one spot.
One state.
One state.
Well, yeah, half the season's at home and then a ton of games against those other 4 teams.
Right.
So it makes sense. And I'm somebody that grew up a Sonics fan in Seattle, so I'm always a little sensitive to the relocation, but I think this kind of had to happen for the AHL. I mean, that's minor league hockey. They have to kind of...
Yeah, it's minor league hockey, but like I said, it's spreading the sport out East Coast, West Coast. The non-traditional markets are going to see more. And, you know, I think that hopefully it spreads even a little more in the Southwest, Dallas, Arizona, Colorado.
Yeah,
you know,
Southern California.
To kind of include more.
Yeah, when I say it's minor league hockey, I'm not saying I'm not trying to discount it. I'm saying that they basically are beholden to the NHL affiliates.
Correct.
So they kind of have to do what's going to benefit the NHL teams the most. And I'm excited. I'm going to go to a couple games in San Diego. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
It's right there. It's literally that arena they're going to play in is on the water. So you can see SeaWorld.
It's a floating arena.
Yeah, it's like one of those riverboat casinos. Last thing real quick. We're not going to touch on the World Juniors. That happened a couple weeks ago now, but it still seems like Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel is the top 2 picks in that order. It's obviously going to be those 2 guys. Any team, and I know I already threw out Edmonton, it's nothing against them, but I just feel like they've had so many number 1 picks. Any team you specifically don't want to see get Connor McDavid, or any team you think he would fit very well on? What's going on over there, Doug?
I just pushed the lottery button.
Oh, how'd that work out?
New Jersey's number 1 now.
Okay.
With Buffalo and Edmonton.
Okay.
So the running constant here is who's 2 and who's 3? Is it Buffalo or Edmonton?
Well, it's going to be Buffalo every time, and this is... You and I talked about this before the season,
Ooh, I just did it again. I got Oilers number 1 now.
Yeah, see, I don't want that. I don't think an NHL team would tank. This goes back to my point in the offseason. But the way it's set up this year, if you have the worst record, you're at least getting Jack Eichel. And Buffalo's pretty locked into that spot right now. I think we can almost say Buffalo's definitely getting Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel. Because you have the worst pick, you have a 20% chance of getting number 1. I mean, you can hit that lottery 100 times. Buffalo's only going to come up 20 in theory.
Right.
But every time, they're never going to come up lower than 2. So it's been a weird season. You're seeing teams when they realize they're not making the playoffs, it's like, there's still something to potentially get this year. When is that? That's in April, right? The draft lottery? Mm-hmm. That's got to be the most watched draft lottery ever. Like
this year, yeah.
Yeah, it's been looked forward to for
like in past years. It's like,
months.
Oh, the draft lottery just happened.
Oh, that's on tonight?
That's on?
So I don't really have, again, it's nothing against Edmonton. I just don't necessarily want them to get the number 1 pick. And I kind of don't want Buffalo to get the number 1 pick either, just because they're in last. I want it to be a little intrigue.
I don't know. I don't have a problem with Buffalo getting it.
But they're going to get Eichel anyway.
Yeah, but if I want one, I want one.
Whatever. I would much rather see, and there was an article written about this a couple weeks ago that caused a huge stir, but they were saying McDavid needs to either go to Carolina or Arizona because he could instantly turn around a hockey team in a non-traditional market.
Except for his sophomore year.
That's it for episode 54. Join us next time as we get you ready for the upcoming NHL trade deadline.
And you know what? We're going to keep a very close eye on the Evander Kane situation. Does he stay or does he go? Only the shadow will know.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Eerie. Plus, whatever else happens in the world of hockey, thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.